studies, and when I got involved and look at the working that was proposed and to me, and I thought it was actually in line with what I studied and where my interest is, especially when it comes to climate change and vulnerability, and in the research aspect of it. So, and I also saw that the ASSAR project actually is very key, especially looking at semi-arid specific area, geographical context, which is the semi-arid regions of West Africa, and specifically in West Africa. I think that region has long been very vulnerable, not just to climate change, but other factors which also contributing to the vulnerability of people in that particular region. So personally, I took much interest in it because of a personal passion for climate change adaptation itself, and also for vulnerable people. Yeah, so that's why I got involved with ASSAR project and all. My research actually that I did, my postgraduate research, was also into assessing CARE International Adaptation Learning Program, which was also an adaptation implementation program, which also was in the northern region, specifically East Mamprusi region of East Mamprusi district of Ghana. And I assessed within the 5 year when the project began, the impact and what it meant to the people and where they are taking it next. Most adaptation projects are more quick to do implementation without doing rigorous research to actually understand the context of the area which they are doing implementation. One good thing about ASSAR is actually doing a rigorous research first to understand the various processes and the various things that goes on in semi-arid region before an implementation can be rolled out. So at the local level, I think the project is actually going to help understand the region, that's the semi-arid region itself, not just understanding the region, but to also be able to understand the interaction the region has with the people that lives in it, their vulnerability, their adaptive capacity, and so on. And I think it will actually help, roll out policies and practices that will be really relevant and long-term and sustainable to the people. At the national level, I think it will also help policymakers to also not just look at the region as a region that can actually, they can learn from, and also by the research itself, by ASSAR, the research findings itself, use the research findings, but they can also, with the recommendation and with the practices that will be recommended and the practices that will be rolled out as a result of the project, there could also be an upskill of those activities into other semi-arid regions of the country where probably the ASSAR project could not focus on. So we can also let policymakers also use the same findings and the results and in the practice to also upskill into other regions and other areas. I think the first and foremost, I think what is needed, what actually it's involved is the human resource. The real human resource, the people, and again the funds, which also will come in at an appropriate time for people to be able to do what they are supposed to work on. Yeah. Basically, I think these are the basics. So by human resource, we are talking about the investigators, we are talking about the students involved, and we're even talking about the local people who be engaged, the stakeholders who be engaged. So all these people are very relevant. So in that, there should, especially at the local level, there should be capacity building for people who may not have had knowledge, local people, stakeholders who may not have had deep, rigorous research knowledge. You could have capacity building for them where they can also be involved, especially with example like the RIUs and the TSP. Yes, so they can also obtain training in them and also can help the team to develop the kind of research that is needed. Last week, I think it was very useful. Let me start with the TSP. The TSP, actually, it's very useful in the sense that it's actually helped to be able to get the stakeholders engaged and involved in planning for the future. So we know that the climate is changing. We know that there are a lot of uncertainties, but as in the end of the uncertainty, people are unaware of what will happen in the next 20 years, 15 years. People are unaware. So TSP actually gives people the opportunity to have options of where the possibilities of what will end up based on the activities which are happening now, and also give people the opportunity to also choose a pathway which they want to go in order to achieve specific results. So I think it's very good. It gives people the opportunity to actually know the future, what the future holds, and where they make decisions based on what they presume the future will be. And also for the RIU, I think it's more will help as personally involved in the ASSAR project. It will also help in selecting the relevant and the important stakeholders who can be engaged in the ASSAR process. So not just looking at the people from the local level or the stakeholders at the local level, but across scales. So from the national to the regional, and also basically to the local where the implementation takes place. So I think the RIU, the ability of the methodology to cut across all stakeholders who are involved in, who are connected to the project one way or the other, by finances, by research itself, by implementation, and by collaboration. I think it's very useful, and it's personally I think is the easiest way to be able to identify your stakeholders and what they can bring to you, what they can bring on board, and what you can also help them also to achieve. So basically, I think it's a very good methodology which we use here. Yeah, I think basically it's my engagement with ASSAR with few months is giving me a broad understanding of the whole research research as a whole, and especially looking at semi-arid regions and all the various gaps that are in various research. Like I've noticed various gaps, especially when relating to information, specifically relating to food security. So many gaps that personally I'm identifying to help me in my future PhD project work. Yeah, which I think is very relevant. So many of them, and I think the project has been very useful in that line.